and the invocation by the United States Coast Guard Chaplain, Commander David Stroud.
What so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the ramparts we once were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Let us pray. Holy God, we thank you for blessing us with the gift of waking up this morning in a free nation, one that was conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men and women are created equal. We thank you for the blessings that you have poured out on the United States throughout its history, and for the long list of individuals who have served this nation, especially those who have served and are serving to secure our homeland. We thank you for each one who comes each day to make our nation safe, secure, and resilient. This morning we ask that you continue to pour out your blessings on Acting Secretary Wolf and all those who join with him to protect our nation and our way of life. Please give us your presence for these proceedings, that all that we say and do might honor you and your provision for us. We pray it all in your name. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Please welcome to the podium the senior official performing the duties of the Deputy Secretary, Ken Cuccinelli.
Well, good morning and welcome, everyone. It's an honor to be here with all of you as we assess the state of our cherished homeland. We're here today because the threats that we face as a nation require us to be more vigilant than ever in protecting the people and values we care so deeply about. After decades of putting global interests ahead of the safety and the prosperity of our citizens, this administration has boldly put America first. Our president has taken decisive action to revamp our approach to Homeland Security. We've seen a DHS more dynamic than at any time in the department's history. We have seen a DHS unafraid to disrupt the status quo and deliver results that provide security for the American people. Today, Acting Secretary Wolf will articulate the various ways in which DHS continues to innovate and fulfill the President's vision of a more secure and prosperous America. Through our various components at DHS, we are unified as a department and understand the gravity of the work we do every single day throughout America. In Acting Secretary Wolf, the department has a leader committed to facing the emerging threats of tomorrow. It's been remarkable to witness the President and DHS overcome the vast array of challenges that we've faced over the course of the last almost 4 years. DHS has adapted to the unique threats of our time and will continue to succeed and adapt to whatever obstacles the future may hold for us. 2 days from now will mark the 19th anniversary of 9/11, a day that none of us will ever forget. A day our nation was attacked by terrorists seeking to destroy the bond of our people, but instead we grew stronger. We came together. And as we discuss the current challenges faced by the department and the future of Homeland Security, we do so with reverence to those lost on 9/11 and the heroic first responders and armed forces who have put their lives on the line since that day in the same fight. Out of the ashes of tragedy, our nation arose stronger than ever before, and DHS now plays a vital role in that ascension. We'll hear more about that today. As we approach the 19th anniversary of 9/11, we're reminded that on that day, 19 hijackers exploited the very gaps in our immigration system, in our enforcement, and our national security systems, because that's what they are, the DHS was ultimately created to remedy. The President understands we live in a nation that must defend its borders, and we must know who is entering our beloved country. It's our solemn duty to never allow the entry of individuals hostile to America and our founding principles into the United States of America. And that is one of the many goals we pursue every day. At DHS, we've taken common sense measures to raise the baseline of security screening and to restore the integrity of our immigration system. We will not allow threats to breach our homeland via a dysfunctional and negligent immigration process. Every day we protect the homeland and support our fellow citizens so they can live in a prosperous and free country with safe neighborhoods and communities. We're honored to do so and honored to host you here today at our headquarters in Washington. Thank you very much.
The rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
The Homeland Security Act of 2002 takes the next critical steps in defending our country. Continuing threat of terrorism, threat of mass murder on our own soil will be met with a unified, effective response. Dozens of agencies charged with Homeland Security will now be located within one cabinet department with the mandate and legal authority to protect our people.
That's gonna be hard to get on. Alto Tupaco!
I serve to promote Homeland Security and public safety.
I serve to provide career-long training to law enforcement professionals.
I serve to administer the nation's lawful immigration justice.
I serve to enable effective and secure operations across all Homeland Security missions.
I serve to defend against today's threats and build more secure and resilient infrastructure for the future.
I serve to prevent an attack against the United States using a weapon of mass destruction through timely and responsive support to our operational components.
I serve to protect the nation's transportation systems to ensure freedom of movement for people and commerce.
I serve to safeguard America's borders and enhance the nation's global economic competitiveness.
I stand ready to rise.
I stand ready to rise.
I stand ready to rise and face the next challenge that threatens our homeland.
Please welcome to the podium the Acting Secretary of Homeland Security, the Honorable Chad Wolf.
The Department of Homeland Security is bound by one mission, one creed, answering the call, often in the times of the most arduous environments and difficult of circumstances, to safeguard the American people, our homeland, and our values from all threats, all the time, both today, tomorrow, and in the months and years to come. We are one team, we are one mission, we are one DHS. And we stand ready to rise and ready to face the next challenge that threatens our homeland. Our mission is anything but easy. It is one that is increasingly complex and expansive, one that transcends borders, mission sets, and threat streams. While much has changed since the department was created after 9/11, one thing remains constant: the dedicated men and women of DHS who rise to meet every threat with unwavering professionalism, precision, and passion. It was a privilege to join your ranks at the department's founding. It's the honor of a lifetime to lead this team. To each of you here and across America today, serving alongside you as your acting secretary is an honor that no words can capture. But let me try by saying this: I know your strength and I know your commitment. Nothing can intimidate you. Not cyber attacks, transnational criminal activity, not a global pandemic or the pains of civil unrest, not Mother Nature's storms, and not those of malign actors seeking to bring storms of their own to our shores. To the department's leadership here today, your job is not easy. It's not glamorous. You get no write-ups in glossy magazines. Instead, you get many words written about you or shouted at you. Here are two that you hear too seldom. Thank you. Thank you for showing up every day and working hard for the American people. They know, I know, and on their behalf, I say thank you for your work. As we recognize and celebrate the work today, we also acknowledge the contributions of past leaders who forged and helped to establish our department. I'd like to recognize a few of them here that are with us today. Kirsten Nielsen, former secretary. Admiral Jim Loy, former United States Coast Guard Commandant, TSA Administrator, and Deputy Secretary. Elaine Duke, former Secretary of Management and Deputy Secretary and Acting Secretary. Claire Grady, former Undersecretary of Management and Acting Deputy Secretary. And Tom Homan, former Acting Director of ICE. Thank you for being here. On behalf of a grateful nation and a grateful department, thank you for dedicating your time and service. As one DHS team, today we gather to survey the state of the homeland. And with a steady voice, we will state the threats we face in absolute confidence. We will share how we will meet and defeat them, how we will show how we will strengthen the resilience of our borders, our infrastructure, and our way of life. And let me say at the outset, thanks to the resolve, the ingenuity, and the technical prowess of the men and women of DHS and the unwavering support of President Trump, America is more prepared and more equipped to tackle the threats of the homeland than ever before. The mission sets the components that comprise DHS, from the US CIS to Secret Service, are distinct and important. They are diverse, but our dedication of our workforce is uniformly strong. As we prepare today for tomorrow's dangers, I'm confident that the state of our homeland is secure in the steady hands of the men and women of DHS. We cannot gather as a family in September and fail to remember the day 19 years ago. The smoke has long since disappeared over New York, Shanksville, and the Pentagon, right across the Potomac from where we gather today. But for us, the skies of September are never clear. We rose from the ashes of that day with one purpose: to protect America. Here, liberty and the rule of law live together and sustain one another. DHS stands against all enemies seeking to weaken or destroy them. For more than 17 years after the department was founded, our resolve to safeguard the homeland has never been stronger. But the threats have changed. They're more complex and they're more sophisticated. We were established in 2003, well before iPhones existed that could be used to control drones, before terrorists used cryptocurrency to fund their evil plots, and before nation-states used Twitter to proliferate their disinformation campaigns. Our challenges today are unimaginably different than those of our past. Threats shift, and so must the department. Through the trials, obstacles, and successes of nearly 2 decades, we have learned many lessons and honed our abilities to accomplish our singular mission of protecting the homeland. This ongoing process of growth and improvement has prepared the department to address the threats of today. DHS was created with adaptability in mind to ensure our government's efforts to defend the nation were, in the words of President Bush, comprehensive and united, crafted to analyze threats, to guard our borders, our airports, protect our critical infrastructure, and to coordinate the response of our nation to future emergencies. In 2020, where threats are dynamic, this need for operational flexibility is paramount. And thanks to the support of Congress, the innovation of DHS employees, and the support of the American people, we are better prepared than ever before and to meet the dangers of our time, though we still have much to do. DHS has been able to leverage, coordinate, and surge the department's resources at a moment's notice. From the U.S. Coast Guard medical teams deploying to the border, to ICE and CBP buttressing the Federal Protective Service's defense of federal property, and to FEMA marshaling the response efforts of CISA, CBP, TSA, Coast Guard, and the Secret Service in the wake of hurricanes and COVID-19. This agility is precisely what DHS was designed to accomplish. The American people do not want a department that shies away from challenges just because they are controversial or difficult. The varied objectives of DHS have placed us at the center of nearly every major challenge and crisis. And thanks to the leadership of President Trump over the last 4 years, we've addressed obstacle after obstacle head-on, overcoming the vast array of threats facing our nation. Amidst this shifting series of challenges, a vocal and ill-informed minority has clamored to paint recent DHS actions as examples of mission drift or politicization. They could not be more wrong. Rising to meet the evolving threats means that our tactics, our actions, and our strategies may change but our mission never does. DHS must not, and under this administration will not, permit baseless sensationalism to deter our commitment to secure America. I can confidently say that if the department did not exist, every effort, every response, and every action to secure our homeland would have been slower, inefficient, and less effective. Within the last year alone, we have faced, both as a nation and as a department, new and unprecedented threats. DHS was established for years just like this. We're using authorities previously granted by Congress but never before used as we have faced evolving and novel threats. Let's remember what the department has been able to achieve in the last year alone. We continue to lead the federal government's response to a global pandemic. We're protecting federal buildings and federal law enforcement officers from an emerging threat of violent rioters. We are combating crises at the southern border, such as human trafficking, drug smuggling, and unprecedented illegal migration flows. We are fortifying our economic security by tightening our immigration system, preserving free and fair trade, and thwarting the growing threats posed by China now and in the future. We are identifying and preventing malign foreign actors and nation states from interfering in our elections and protecting our election infrastructure. Against each of these challenges, the department has marshaled our resources, tapped our authorities, and has unified our efforts to safeguard the American people and our way of life. Yet we will not rest on yesterday's successes. Our eyes are on the horizon and on the future. As we look ahead, terrorism, criminal actions threatening public safety, and natural disasters and pandemics will remain threats to the homeland. They always will. But today, we're also seeing nation-states launching new aggressive tactics here in the homeland through cyber and economic means. And rest assured, the Trump administration is taking the necessary actions to ensure they do not succeed. Of all the threats DHS has confronted in the last year, the COVID-19 pandemic has posed one of the most formidable, rapidly evolving, and uniquely challenging for the department. Due to what we now know was China's irresponsible response, COVID-19 was permitted to become the worst global pandemic in more than 100 years. Along with the World Health Organizations, their actions were inept and their response was too slow. In stark contrast, President Trump's decisive and rapid action led to our federal government to pursue a whole-of-America response, which continues to deliver results through a locally executed, state-managed, and federally supported strategy. And when the federal government needed expertise in incident management, they turned to FEMA. Utilizing their experience, FEMA quickly got to work prioritizing tasks, putting structure to a growing crisis, and working with our interagency partners to make certain the full weight and breadth of the U.S. federal government was being brought to the fight. FEMA's tireless efforts implementing critical initiatives, those saving lives, replenishing lost wages, deserve our highest commendation. FEMA processed the first ever nationwide emergency declaration under the Stafford Act. This was in addition to the simultaneous major disaster declarations granted to all 50 states, 5 territories, and the District of Columbia. Putting this effort in perspective, FEMA was essentially responding to a Category 5 hurricane in every state, every territory, and the District of Columbia, all at the same time. It's truly an unprecedented level of emergency support and response needed across America. Under President Trump's direction, we utilized the Defense Production Act to procure more than 220 million respirators from 3M, saving American lives. By taking historic action to better collaborate with the private sector, we have helped deliver and allocate billions of pieces of scarce PPE to our frontline healthcare workers and first responders. But it doesn't stop there. Most recently, FEMA has played a leading role in easing the economic burden COVID-19 has placed on millions of Americans. In August, in the absence of congressional action, President Trump authorized FEMA to use $44 billion from the Disaster Relief Fund to alleviate the effects of lost wages, allowing states to make supplemental payments to those receiving unemployment insurance. FEMA acted in short order, and as of September 8th, FEMA has already provided more than $29 billion to 47 states for lost wages assistance, a truly phenomenal feat. From the very beginning of this pandemic to this very moment, FEMA continues to marshal the power of the federal government to assist our people in their time of need. However, the department's response to COVID-19 is not exclusively to FEMA. From the outset, this administration proactively stemmed the spread of the pandemic. President Trump, working through DHS, placed travel restrictions on China, and work to implement further restrictions on an additional 30 countries to help slow the spread. And working with our neighbors to the north and south, CBP has successfully protected countless Americans through travel restrictions at our land ports of entry, while simultaneously facilitating the trade we need to support our economy. Our other DHS components have also worked diligently in this environment to serve Americans in various ways. CISA, supporting our private sector partners, removed obstacles as they worked to keep supply chains fully operational and issued essential worker guidance on how to keep frontline employees healthy and at work. Our Science and Technology Directorate curated the latest research and data on COVID-19, keeping policymakers and decision makers abreast of the latest scientific information. ICE, HSI, launched Operation Stolen Promise, leveraging its expertise in global trade and criminal analysis to investigate financial fraud schemes, the importation of prohibited pharmaceuticals and medical supplies, cyber fraud, and other illicit activity associated with the virus. And CBP has proactively combated the criminals exploiting this pandemic for profit by seizing over 12 million counterfeit face masks, thousands of FDA-prohibited COVID-19 test kits, and thousands more unimproved medications that could pose harm to the American public. DHS will remain vigilant in supporting the public health and economic well-being of the American people. Responding to COVID is not the only mission that would have been hard to predict at the beginning of the year. Today, the department is resisting the civil unrest that is gripping certain cities across the country. And let me be clear, those who seek to undermine our democratic institutions, indiscriminately destroy our businesses, and attack our law enforcement officers and fellow citizens are a threat to the homeland. I want to be clear on that point. The department has experienced this firsthand in Portland, Oregon, where violent opportunists repeatedly targeted an attempt to burn down a federal courthouse, the seat of justice in downtown Portland. Federal law in this area is unequivocal and compels action. Secretary of Homeland Security shall protect the buildings, grounds, and property that are owned, occupied, and secured by the federal government and the people on that property. I have made it clear time and again that we will never abdicate this moral and legal duty. Our Federal Protective Service protects nearly 9,000 federal properties around the country, and in almost every one of those areas, we receive assistance from local officials when federal buildings are targeted and attacked. Unfortunately, this cooperation did not occur in Portland. This is a city where local leadership played partisan politics with public safety, allowing attempts of arson and violence against federal law enforcement officers, and the destruction of federal property to occur with impunity. For nearly 2 months, while defending the federal courthouse, our federal officers were assaulted with sledgehammers, commercial-grade fireworks, rocks, metal pipes, IEDs, and more. As Portland officials refused to cooperate with DHS, our law enforcement officers suffered over 240 separate injuries. And after 60 days of this violence, the governor of Oregon finally offered assistance of state law enforcement. But to be clear, that offer should have occurred on day 1, not day 60. Some politicians and media figures have brazenly characterized the extreme violence in Portland and other cities around the country as mostly peaceful. Our Constitution protects the natural right to freedom of speech and peaceful assembly. The department supports the exercise of everyone's First Amendment rights. There is, however, no constitutional right to loot, to burn, or to assault law enforcement officers or your fellow citizens. Let me repeat, there is no constitutional right to burn cities to the ground and assault the men and women of law enforcement. I'm proud of the work that we're doing in Portland and around the country. DHS, working with the Department of Justice and other federal law enforcement, will make sure that those choosing to break the law in any city will be held accountable. The vast majority of reasonable Americans are also proud of the work of law enforcement. We cannot and must not fall victim to the delusion of a fringe minority of Americans who are opposed to the honorable men and women who wear the badge and swear to protect our communities. Americans see the violence against our officers and are not falling for this false narrative. To our law enforcement colleagues watching today, I could not be more prouder of your sacrifice and professionalism. It has been disappointing to see so-called experts criticize our response in Portland without understanding the facts on the ground. It's unsettling that these self-appointed experts rush to criticize the uniformed men and women of DHS, working to save lives and to defend federal property, even before they condemn the violent behavior of a rioting mob. Scoring cheap political points by abandoning those that risk their lives to preserve law and order should never be the way that our Homeland Security community operates. As President Theodore Roosevelt rightly observed in 1910, it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how strong the man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. Credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. Every day, DHS professionals are in that arena while others sit on the sidelines and criticize. They have that right, and DHS law enforcement proudly helps ensure they can exercise that right safely. But make no mistake, there's more work to be done as we see groups right here at home seeking to tear down our government institutions and our way of life. I'm proud to say that DHS has taken unprecedented actions to address all forms of violent extremism, to specifically include threats posed by lone offenders and small cells of individuals. Last year, the department released a comprehensive strategy that contextualizes the threats from violent extremists and lays out the DHS mission in preventing such violence. We secured, with the help of Congress, an additional funding in FY 2020 for those initiatives. And the President requested a 300% increase in funding for DHS-wide efforts in this area in his FY 21 budget. Just this week, we're releasing an implementation plan that outlines dozens of separate actions across the DHS enterprise designed to combat domestic terrorism. And soon we will announce our terrorism prevention grant recipients. Let me be clear. DHS stands in absolute opposition to any form of violent extremism, whether by white supremacist extremists or anarchist extremists. We will continue our daily efforts to combat all forms of domestic terror. The work of DHS is diverse as it is important. Whether in cyberspace or at the border, DHS is unflinching in its resolve to secure America's territorial sovereignty through strong border security and bringing integrity back to our immigration system. These are difficult issues that require difficult decisions. Many administrations, Republican and Democrat alike,